Okay, recap the end of part one.
What did I say?
We were talking about perfectionism and self-discovery, and growth.
No regrets. No regrets. So everyone has, even though they say they live by no regrets, I think everyone has like an inner regret and they just don't openly admit it. And I think you are doing that now. I think you are living with a no regret attitude.
Okay, so here's where I want to take it now.
Okay.
Okay? You know me better than just about anybody. There are very few people that can say they know me as well as you do.
Okay.
You know my history with perfectionism, the way that I think, the way that I live according to plan, the way I set goals. I'd like you to reconcile what you know, because everything you just said is in large general terms, and every once in a while you connected it to me. I want you to take everything you just said and do it in relationship to me.
To you?
Yeah, go dig. Say whatever you want to say. Make it as personal as you want to make it. But I think what you're talking about is very profound and very important. And I want the lessons from it that are directly responsible, the things that I should look at in me, out of that, here, now, today, and going forward.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think. Maybe. Going back to Backlog Beast Bait, we had a picture night where we were done with our shows, and you said if anybody wants certain pictures done throughout the play, list them, and then we'll do it. And you were the director, and you wanted to do yours first, which we were cool because you're the director, and yeah, you have a vision, and you want to hodgepodge that. Something happened to where it didn't go to plan on your list, and you were upset by it, like physically upset by it. And I remember afterwards, some of us going, that was a bit extreme to be physically upset by that. Okay? Because it was perfect in your head. You saw it go a certain way, and it didn't go that way. So you were physically bothered by it because in your head it perfectly didn't go well. To now, where you're going on this trip, we just happen to be in San Antonio at the same time that you're getting in San Antonio, and you were like, so originally you were saying you were going to be here about the 20th, you got here a couple of days, and we made it work. Like it was at least on my end, it felt like it just kind of like a go with the flow thing, we'll make it work. Whereas the Rob that I know from Backlog Beast Bait, you would have been upset because you told us you would be here on the 20th and you got here earlier. So it was like, what would I do to make that perfect? Like you would have done, that would have caused you angst, and a lack of a better term. Whereas now you're like, hey, this is where I'm at. Can we get together? This is what I'm doing. These are my plans. This is where I want to go. And you were not stressed one way or another if it was going to happen or not, because you just kind of knew it was going to, and you let it be. You were open to the fact of whatever happened. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm kind of absorbing that. In college, I would, as a photo call, I would have been copying what I saw other people do.
Absolutely.
And so I thought that a photo call was supposed to run in a specific way.
Absolutely.
And I know I am very rule driven. And I've wondered if I'm rule driven enough to be classified as high functioning autistic. And I usually dismiss that. But it's something that's not mine to talk about. So I will leave that. I've had reason to consider that because I'm very heavily rule driven, and because I was on my own and living on my own and felt like I was living without a safety net. And it doesn't. I'm still kind of compiling what you said. Because part of the purpose of the trip was to live without agenda, to get up in the morning and not be worried that I didn't know where I would be sleeping tonight, and to try and release some of those expectations and those rules.
Yes.
Because when you're describing how things worked out in us getting together today, I think there was still a certain amount of planning to it.
There was some planning to it only because, I'm here for our family reunion.
Right.
Whereas you're on your trip. Now, like you even said, you're trying to smash. You've had to skip a couple of things because you're trying to smash certain things that you definitely want to see
right.
within a time frame. So you kind of have to, I don't want to say schedule, but you kind of have to manage it probably a little bit more than what you've been doing.
Yeah.
So I don't think you're getting away from it. I just think it's because of the timeline that you're on now. You're picking and making your priorities, and so we have people who we're involved with and dealing with and trying to get together with, and you're trying to get your situation. So there had to be maybe a little bit of planning, but it wasn't like, okay, this day at this time, we're going to meet here at this. And like, it wasn't like we penciled it in, and that's what I mean by scheduling.
So the flip side of it was I originally thought we were going to get together in New Orleans.
Right.
Which is where you've been living.
Right.
And in looking at the fact that I have 7.5 weeks left of the trip, I went, okay, if I'm going to run into them in San Antonio, then all of the things I wanted to do in New Orleans now become secondary, and there's a lot more of New Orleans that I wanted to experience than I'd be able to do. It's probably going to take me a week to do New Orleans, and I don't have a week.
Right.
Exactly.
So instead of if I understand you correctly,
yes.
Instead of stressing about the fact that I can't make New Orleans work now, the fact that my mind can now go, okay, I'm flexible enough to go, well, how do we deal with that? What's the alternative? And recognizing that there is, in fact, a tomorrow.
Yes.
That's been a big problem for me. Remembering that there is a tomorrow.
Yes.
And going, okay, well, then we'll go to New Orleans over Thanksgiving and form this new plan to travel.
It'll be cooler.
Yeah, thank you. But see, that's part of the serendipity to the way things line up when you relax that control and you just trust the universe to do what it's going to do.
Absolutely.
Which I've always been a believer in.
Yeah, and I like Shawn even said, certain things happen for a reason. You just have to be willing to be open to it and accepting that this is how it's supposed to go and just go with it. Mm-hmm. There's several things, obviously, because we've moved a lot. We've had to do that as well. This is happening for a reason. We're tracking some of his jobs. It's like if we hadn't gone here and gone here, he wouldn't be here today. It's just you gotta try to be open to enough. That door opens.
And that in and of itself, if you go back across our 13 years together, I mean, in 13 years we've moved across the country 3 times. I mean, that by itself is a thing where you just wait a minute. People just don't do that.
Yeah.
Well, we have, but it's allowed us to get to where we are now, and I'm not going to call this utopia, but what we are going to build here in San Antonio will be our utopia. I mean, it truly will be. And
I think there's stages in life.
It's been a journey to get to.
Yeah. Everyone's on a journey, and I think there's stages in that journey. And as long as you're open to, don't focus on the method, just look at the experience and take what you can from that experience. You can come up gravy, smelling roses. I mean, think of any cliche that you want to put in there. It's just going to be a choice, life.
Well, I have a metaphor.
Do you?
Well, I want to ask about it because it's theory for me and it might be reality for you.
Before you say that, to add to the whole going with the flow, you were concerned about what you could get. Before we met, you were concerned about what you could get within your time frame because you were wanting to get a little bit farther east than what you think you're going to be able to do.
Yeah.
And I remember us talking and I said something to the fact of, you can always plan another trip for the ones that you don't hit. And you went, you're right, I can plan another trip. Whereas the old Rob wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't have came out of your mouth.
There's a tomorrow.
Yeah. So I think you're on the right track, brother.
You ever broken a horse?
Have I broken a horse?
Yeah.
No.
Or broken a horse in? Is my terminology wrong?
I have probably re-broken a horse. I wouldn't necessarily broken a horse. She was trained. She had been with some horses for a while, and it was the first time I took her out riding again and left her friends, she freaked out. So I kind of had to like work with her to let her know that it was okay because she was going to come back to the friends kind of thing. But I don't know if that was necessarily breaking her because she was already trained.
So my perception is that when you break a horse in, you might think you're trying to make the horse do what you want it to do, but the reality is you're kind of not. You're more relaxing and letting the horse do what it's gonna do, and maybe just guiding and shaping and going along for the ride.
I can see that, absolutely.
Until the horse trusts you.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay.
Like making her realize, hey, even if I go out on the back acres and I'll come back, my friends will still be there. You just kind of roll with it.
Or I can simplify it even more and just say the Chinese finger puzzle.
Yes.
I've told 2 of the 3 parable stories, metaphors that I like to come back to these days. One of them's the 2 wolves. The second one's the Chinese finger puzzle. Talked about both of those. The third one's the blind men and the elephant.
Blind man and the elephant. I haven't heard that one.
5 blind men and the elephant. It's usually 5 Chinese blind men and the elephant. I guess I'll just cover it right now because I'll tell you the story. There's 5. There's 5. Slow pan.
See, I won't get dizzy on that one.
There you go.
It's a good thing.
You're gonna watch yourself. I forget the context, but the 5 blind men are asked to describe an elephant. And so they each touch different parts of the elephant in order to describe it. And one touches the side of the elephant, says an elephant is like a wall. One touches the leg of the elephant and says the elephant is like a tree trunk. One touches the tail and says it's like a rope. One touches the trunk and says it's like a snake. And one touches the ear of the elephant, and I forget what that compares to. It's like a big leathery piece of paper or something like that. And the moral that comes out of the story is that no individual perspective has the whole picture.
True.
It's only by collecting all of these different perspectives that you even have a shot at defining the whole.
Yes.
And so I tend to look at, well, this is my perspective on how something works, but others might be feeling a different piece of the elephant and therefore see it differently. And that shapes a lot of my view on politics in particular. But that's the third one. And now it's in this video, so I'll include that one.
It's really interesting you said that because my mom, the family reunion that we're having here, she's one of 6 kids.
Yeah.
And
they're not all blind, are they?
no, they're not all blind.
Okay, good.
But it was always interesting as a kid when they all got together, when they would reminisce, because each one of them had a different perspective of what happened at that occasion or whatever. And as a kid sitting back listening to them telling their stories, it was a joy for me at least because I got the picture of what they all experienced.
Oh, cool.
And it was really cool to witness and see.
It's like looking at those optical illusions where you can look at it one way and it's an old woman, and you look at it from a different angle and it's a young woman.
Yeah.
Or the birds flying across, they're either white or black depending on which direction you're looking at.
Yep.
Yeah, 2 people can see the same event and remember it very differently.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Very cool.
Life is perspective.
100%.
So deep.
It's your fault.
Goodness.
All right, we've done 43 minutes of video. Is there anything you want to say in closing? It's funny,
Enjoy yourself.
Enjoy myself?
That was the guy with the radio, wasn't
Might have been.
it? Maybe. I don't know. Anyways, enjoy yourself on this trip. Take every moment and embrace it wholeheartedly.
Absolutely. So and the journey of who you become based off of the experiences that you are really create that perspective. And it is reality. So no matter what you get to go through, whether it be a thunderstorm, having a couple of drinks with some friends in San Antonio, no matter what it is, that becomes who you are in your reality. So soak it all in and then take it back with you whenever you get back to what real life is. Because ultimately, even these videos become what your reality is. So you can never get enough. You can never get enough of that for me. I love life as a whole, and I will do everything that I can to make sure that I enjoy every single minute of it up until the point where I pass on from this world. And I don't think it gets any better. It doesn't.
No. And remember, there's no failures, there's only lessons. It's the truest statement ever. And I think that's the biggest thing another thing that we get all caught up on, is that it's, oh, I failed, it's a horrible thing. No, it's just another opportunity for you to learn and grow.
Yep. 100%.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for lunch. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Pollyanna. Say goodnight, Faunia and Shawn.
Good night, Rob.
Faunia and Shawn.
Yes!